Welcome back to Unveiled Oracle and Tarot. Today's exploration is one that I've been looking forward to for months. The official Agatha All Along Tarot Deck and Guidebook releases on July 8th, but I have this advanced copy to share with you. I was also able to conduct exclusive interviews with both of its creators, author and astrologer Andrea Hannah, who wrote the accompanying guidebook, and illustrator Brittany Horn, who worked as assistant to the show's creator and producer Jack Schaefer, and whose artwork also featured in the series. A link to that interview can be found in the video description below, but let's go ahead and get started. The box art for this deck went through a couple different iterations before landing on this version, which includes a few key elements from the show. Thematically, this illustration of Agatha's brooch is key. It represents the triple goddess, which embodies our journey from the ignorance of youth into the wisdom of old age. Maiden, Mother, Crone. It's a perfect tie-in with the show and the character development we see among all of its protagonists, and of course, Agatha in particular. Artistically, purple and black make perfect sense, and I really love the color-changing effect of the foil accenting here from purple to a sort of blue, which is carried through along the sides and back as well. I also love the moon phases, as well as the tiny little skull haunting the corner, very much like Death does in the show. On the back, the first thing we see are some previews of the cards, which, from the user perspective, is always appreciated. I like to at least have some idea of what I'm buying, and a glimpse of the cards is a great way to inform that decision. The opening is a magnetic flap, which is a lot easier than pulling things apart. Inside, a little quote from the show, "Seekest thou the road." As many of you know, I love a cohesive union between form and function, so we are off to a great start. I would like to know your thoughts about the final cover art, and as we go along, what Easter eggs you find in the illustrations and guide. In our interview, Brittany mentioned there are a few hidden gems in the card illustrations, so definitely feel free to point those out in the comments. And now, into the guide we go. It is a bit larger than the standard guide, which is always a plus for me. Other than that, solid construction, and the pages are a soft matte finish. It doesn't stick to itself though, it makes paging through it a lot easier. Moving on to features, the first page gives us a welcome with the opening lyrics from the Ballad of the Witch's Road. You'll find a couple of these throughout the book, as well as some illustrated references to the show sprinkled in. The table of contents is pretty standard. All of the major arcana cards are listed with their corresponding page numbers, while the minor arcana cards are divided up and numbered by the beginning of each suit. As is custom, we have full color, full page images for the major arcana, and a more condensed format for the minor arcana. No reverse definitions, but the author does give pointers early into the guide on how to start intuiting reversals, which is a thoughtful addition. All of our spreads are located in the very back, including 2 thematic spreads. The Witch spread splits the major and minor arcana to determine your witch type, the nature of your gifts, and how they might develop along your own personal journey. I think this would be very fun to read for others. And the second spread is Lilia's Safe Passage, taken from her trial on the show. Several people have pulled this directly from the show already, but it's still cool to see it here as an official spread for the deck. Overall, this book contains all the information you'd need to get started with tarot, striking a good balance between condensing divination themes with comprehensive guidance on tarot as a practice. These themed decks end up on people's shelves for a lot of reasons, so it's important to ensure it's not just a collector's item, but usable as well. And now to the cards. Unlike the guide, these appear to be standard size for tarot. The cardstock is a nice heavy weight. The finish is a soft matte. It does tend to stick a little, but they do feel very nice in hand. The artwork on the back features a couple of interesting symbols. The moon motif is continued here, which makes sense. The various phases of the moon in the show were used to depict the nature of each trial along the witch's road, as well as the 4 central elements, earth, air, fire, and water. At the center, we have these conjoined triangles, and triangles mean so many different things to so many different groups and people, but to me, this gives hourglass vibes. And if I think of it in the context of the show, I find that to be fitting. Hourglasses often represent the cycle of life, inevitable change and inevitable death, which is ultimately what Agatha has spent her life running away from. even while being in love with the thing itself. If we take a closer look at the center, where the triangles connect, we have a diamond. I choose to believe that none of these design choices are coincidence, so perhaps this references the spiritual enlightenment each character finds along the road. My own musings aside, I'd like to know what you see when you look at these. I have some ideas about the color choices, but I'd like to know what you think it all means, so drop your thoughts in a comment. That said, let's go ahead and explore the faces. Remember, we're Easter egg hunting, so point those out too when you find them. Overall, I think this deck does a great job of bringing elements of the show, including the cards we saw on screen, as well as Lilia's pivotal spread, into the real world as a very usable and collectible set of cards. I'd like to take a moment to thank Insight Editions for providing this advanced copy for us to explore. Publishers will sometimes send copies to people for promotional purposes, but I was not sponsored or paid to feature the deck, and receiving this ahead of release was just a bonus, as I was already planning the episode the moment a deck was announced. That said, I'd also like to thank its author, Andrea Hannah, and illustrator, Brittany Horn, once again for taking time to share their experiences working on this deck with me. I really enjoy speaking to the creatives behind these types of projects, as everyone has a unique story about how they came to be involved, and I found both Andrea's and Brittany's stories particularly interesting. Once again, you can find a link to our conversation on comicbookmovie.com in the video description. Thank you again for joining me on the Witch's Road today, but for now, the time has come to go.